The alarm beeped at 6 in the morning just like it always did. Minho rolled over in his small cabin bed and slapped the button to turn it off. He rubbed his eyes and sat up slowly. Another day, another delivery to make across the stars. Minho was a messenger. Not the exciting kind you see in movies, fighting space pirates or discovering new worlds. He was the boring kind. The kind who carried sealed data packages from one place to another. He worked for the Terran Messenger Corps, a company that governments and businesses trusted to deliver important messages safely. He had been doing this job for 8 years now. 8 years of jumping from one star system to another, handing over sealed packages, getting signatures, and moving on to the next delivery. It was simple work. It was safe work. It paid enough to send money back to his mother on Earth. That was all Minho wanted from life. He got dressed in his gray uniform. The uniform was plain, with just a small Earth flag patch on the shoulder and his identification number below it. Messengers were supposed to be invisible. They were not supposed to stand out or be remembered. They were just the people who brought the mail. Minho grabbed a quick breakfast from the food printer in his cabin. Nutrient paste shaped like noodles. It tasted like nothing, but it filled his stomach. He washed it down with synthesized coffee that almost tasted real. Almost. His ship, the dancing crane, was small but comfortable. It had a cabin, a cockpit, a tiny bathroom, and a cargo bay that was mostly empty except for the secure container where he kept his deliveries. The ship was old but reliable. Minho had flown it through hundreds of star systems without any major problems. He walked to the cockpit and sat down in the pilot's chair. The chair made a familiar creaking sound. He had been meaning to fix that for 2 years. The control panel lit up with dozens of small lights and displays. Everything looked normal. Minho checked his message queue. He had docked at Station 17 last night after finishing his previous delivery. Usually he would get his next assignment within a few hours. Sure enough, there was a new message waiting for him. He opened it and started reading. His supervisor, Ji-Wan, had sent him a new assignment. Minho expected it to be another routine job. Deliver documents to a colony world, pick up a signature, move on. But as he read, his eyebrows went up. The delivery was to Velkara Prime, the home world of the Velkara Empire. Minho had heard of the Velkara, of course. Everyone had. They were one of the oldest and most powerful alien civilizations in known space. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out how to make fire. Their empire covered dozens of star systems. Their technology was so advanced that even their basic tools looked like magic to human scientists, but humans rarely dealt with them directly. The Velkara kept to themselves mostly. They had a few trade agreements with Earth and the human colonies, but they were distant and formal. Cold even. Minho had never delivered anything to Velkara space before. He did not know any messenger who had. He read the rest of the message carefully. The package was a trade agreement proposal. Some human diplomats wanted to expand business relationships with the Velkara. They needed someone trustworthy to deliver the proposal directly to the Velkara government. Minho frowned. This seemed like the kind of job that should go to a senior messenger. Someone with more experience. Someone more impressive than him. He decided to call Ji-Wan directly. He tapped the communication panel and waited. After a few seconds, Ji-Wan's face appeared on the screen. She was in her office on Earth, and it looked like she had been awake for a while. She always started work early. "Minho," she said with a small smile. "I knew you would call." "Why me?" Minho asked directly. "This delivery seems important. Should you not send someone with more experience?" Ji-Wan shook her head. "You have 8 years of experience. Your record is perfect. Not a single lost package. Not a single complaint. That is exactly what we need for this job." "But the Velkara," Minho said. "I have never dealt with them before. No human messenger has been to their throne world in over 50 years, Ji-Wan replied. The Velkara requested someone reliable and quiet. Someone who will not cause problems or try to be impressive. They do not like show-offs. They like people who do their job and nothing more." Minho thought about this. It made sense in a way. He was good at being unremarkable, good at following rules, good at staying quiet and doing his job. "There is one more thing," Jiwan said, her voice becoming more serious. "The Velkara have very strict customs. They care a lot about proper behavior and respect. I am sending you a cultural briefing file. Study it carefully during your flight. Do not skip any of it." "How long is the flight?" Minho asked. 3 weeks through the jump gates," Jiwan said. "You will have plenty of time to prepare. Just be polite, follow their customs, hand over the package, get the signature, and come home. Simple." Minho nodded slowly. "Okay, I will do it." "Good," Jiwan said. "The package is being loaded into your cargo bay right now. You are cleared for departure in 2 hours. Good luck, Minho." The screen went dark. Minho sat back in his chair and stared at the control panel without really seeing it. Something about this job felt different. He could not explain why. It should be simple, just another delivery. But his gut told him something was not quite right. He shook his head. He was being paranoid. Jiwan was right. This was simple work. Fly to Velkara Prime, hand over the package, come home. Nothing to worry about. Minho spent the next 2 hours preparing for departure. He checked all the ship's systems twice. He made sure the cargo container was properly sealed and secure. He filed his flight plan with station control. Everything was routine. When the time came, he powered up the dancing crane's engines. The ship lifted smoothly off the docking platform and turned toward the exit lane. Station 17 grew smaller, behind him as he flew toward the edge of the system where the jump gate waited. Before he jumped, Minho opened the cultural briefing file that Jiwan had sent. It was over 300 pages long. He sighed. This was going to be a long 3 weeks. As the dancing crane approached the jump gate, Minho felt that strange feeling again. The feeling that his life was about to change in ways he could not predict. He pushed the thought away and activated the jump sequence. The stars stretched into lines of light, and the dancing crane leaped across space toward the Velkara Empire. Minho did not know it yet, but he would never make another simple delivery again. His life as an unremarkable messenger was about to end. What would replace it was something he could never have imagined. 3 weeks passed in the lonely quiet of space. Minho spent his days reading the cultural briefing, exercising in the small space behind his cockpit, and eating meals that all tasted the same. He practiced basic Velkaran phrases, though the language was difficult. Their words had sounds that human throats were not designed to make. Finally, the dancing crane dropped out of its last jump. Velkara Prime appeared in front of him, and Minho forgot to breathe for a moment. The planet was beautiful. The oceans were not blue like Earth's, but a strange silver color that reflected the light of its sun. 3 moons hung in the sky above it, each a different color, purple, green, and pale gold. The planet seemed to glow with its own light. Before Minho could admire it further, his communication panel lit up. Multiple signals appeared on his scanner. Ships, lots of them. Within seconds, 6 Velkaran warships surrounded the dancing crane. They were sleek and elegant, shaped like curved blades. They made a small courier ship look like a toy. "Terran vessel dancing crane," a voice said through his speakers. The voice was translated by his computer, but he could hear the strange musical quality of the original Velkaran language underneath. "You are expected. Follow our guidance. Do not deviate from the approach path." "Understood," Minho replied, trying to keep his voice steady. His hands were sweating. This was not normal. The briefing file had mentioned that he would be escorted, but 6 warships seemed excessive for one small messenger ship carrying a trade proposal. The warships guided him down toward the planet. As they descended through the atmosphere, Minho got his first look at a Velkaran city. His jaw dropped. The capital city looked like it had been grown rather than built. Towers rose into the sky like enormous crystals, each one glowing with soft internal light. Gardens floated between the towers, held up by technology Minho could not begin to understand. Streams of water flowed upward instead of down, defying gravity. Everything was art and function combined into one. They landed at a platform near the largest tower. The moment his ship touched down, Velkaran guards surrounded it. They were tall, at least 7 feet, wearing armor that looked like liquid metal. Each guard carried a weapon that hummed with barely contained energy. Minho took a deep breath. He was just delivering a package. Nothing to be nervous about. He retrieved the sealed container from his cargo bay and walked down the ramp. The moment he stepped onto Velkaran soil, the guards formed a formation around him. They did not touch him or threaten him, but their presence was clear. He was being escorted with the kind of security usually reserved for important prisoners or visiting royalty. "This way," one guard said. The translator made the words sound cold and formal. They led him into the crystal tower. Inside, everything was even more impressive. The walls seemed to be made of living light. Patterns flowed across surfaces like water. The air smelled sweet, like flowers Minho had never encountered. Other Velkara watched as he passed. They were beautiful in an alien way. Their skin had a faint luminescence, shifting through subtle colors. They had 4 arms instead of 2, each moving with perfect grace. Their eyes were large and dark with no visible pupils. Minho had seen pictures of Velkara before, but seeing them in person was completely different. They moved like dancers. They barely seemed to touch the ground when they walked. The guards led him through corridor after corridor, going higher into the tower. Minho expected to be taken to some administrative office where a mid-level official would receive the package, sign for it, and send him on his way. Instead, the guards brought him to an enormous set of doors. The doors were easily 20 feet tall, carved with patterns that seemed to move and change as he looked at them. "Wait," one guard said. Minho stood there, holding his sealed container, feeling very small and very confused. Why was he being brought to such an important-looking place? The doors opened silently. Beyond them was a throne room. The chamber was vast. The ceiling was so high that Minho could barely see it. Hundreds of Velkara stood in perfect rows on either side of a long walkway. They all turned to look at him as the doors opened. The entire room fell silent. At the far end of the chamber, on a raised platform, sat a throne. And on that throne sat the most impressive being Minho had ever seen, Queen Isavera. She was taller than the other Velkara, easily 8 feet. Her skin did not just glow. It radiated light in waves that changed from silver to gold to pale blue. She had 4 arms like the others, but hers were decorated with jewelry that seemed to be made of captured starlight. Her eyes were fixed on Minho, and he felt like she could see right through him. The guard beside him gestured forward. Minho's legs moved automatically. He walked down the long path toward the throne, feeling every single pair of eyes watching him. His footsteps echoed in the massive chamber. He had read about proper greeting protocols in the briefing file. When he reached the base of the platform, he stopped and bowed his head respectfully. Not too low, which would show weakness, but low enough to show respect. Exactly as the briefing had instructed. "Your Majesty," Minho said, his voice somehow steady despite his racing heart. "I bring a message from the Terran diplomatic delegation." He held up the sealed container. A Velkara official stepped forward and took the container from his hands. The official carried it up the platform steps and presented it to the Queen. Queen Isavera took the container with one hand. She opened it with a gesture that was too quick for Minho to follow. Inside was a data crystal containing the trade proposal. She held it up to the light for just a moment, and somehow Minho knew she was reading the entire document in seconds. The Queen set the crystal aside. Then she did something that made Minho's blood run cold. She leaned forward on her throne and stared directly at him. Her eyes seemed to see everything about him. Every thought, every memory, every secret he had ever kept. "Fascinating," the Queen said. Her voice was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Even through the translator, it made the air vibrate. Absolutely fascinating. Minho had no idea what she meant. He waited, not daring to speak. The Queen stood. Every Velkara in the room immediately bowed their heads. Minho quickly did the same. "Human messenger," the Queen said, walking down the steps toward him. "What is your name?" "Minho, Your Majesty." "Han Minho." "Minho," she repeated, as if tasting the word. She circled around him slowly. Minho forced himself to stand still even though every instinct told him to run. "You delivered your message successfully," the Queen said. "However, I have decided that you will remain here as my honored guest." Minho blinked. "Your Majesty, I am grateful for the honor, but I have other deliveries scheduled. I should return to my ship and—" "You misunderstand," the Queen interrupted gently. "This is not a request. You will stay in the palace. Your needs will be provided for." You will be treated with the greatest respect and care. Minho's mouth went dry. For how long, Your Majesty? The Queen tilted her head, and Minho could swear he saw amusement in those alien eyes. That remains to be determined, she said. Guards, escort our guest to the residential wing. Ensure he has everything he requires. Wait, Minho said, his carefully maintained politeness cracking. I need to contact my supervisor. I need to explain. All will be explained in time, the Queen said. She turned and walked back toward her throne. For now, rest. Recover from your journey. We will speak again soon. The guards surrounded Minho again. This time their presence felt less like an honor guard and more like a cage. They led him out of the throne room. Behind him, he could hear the Velkaran court beginning to whisper among themselves. The sound was like wind through strange trees. As they walked through the corridors, Minho's mind raced. What just happened? Why would the Queen want to keep him here? He was nobody. Just a messenger. There had to be some mistake. The guards brought him to a set of rooms that were larger and more luxurious than his entire ship. There was a bedroom with a bed big enough for 4 people, a bathroom with a pool instead of a shower, and windows that looked out over the glowing city. You will remain here, a guard said. If you need anything, speak your request aloud. Someone will hear and respond. The guards left. Minho heard a soft click as the door closed behind them. He walked to the door and tried to open it. It did not move. He was trapped. In a beautiful prison surrounded by aliens who were far more powerful than any human, held by the order of a queen he did not understand, and he had absolutely no idea why. Days turned into weeks. Minho lost count after the first 10 days. He woke each morning in the enormous bed that was far too soft. Servants would bring him breakfast, strange alien fruits that tasted sweet and foods that looked nothing like anything from Earth but somehow satisfied his hunger. They never spoke to him beyond simple greetings. When he asked questions, they smiled politely and said nothing useful. His rooms were comfortable, even luxurious, but they were still a cage. The door remained locked from the outside. Guards stood in the hallway at all times. When he looked out his window, he could see the beautiful city below, full of life and movement that he could not reach. At first, Minho tried to contact his ship. He asked the servants to let him send a message to Earth. They smiled and said they would relay his request. Nothing happened. He tried to explain that people would be worried about him. More smiles. More nothing. He was not mistreated. In fact, he was treated better than he had ever been treated in his life. But he was definitely not free. On the 15th day, things changed slightly. A guard came to his room and told him he was permitted to walk in certain areas of the palace. He would have an escort at all times, but at least he could leave his rooms. Minho took the opportunity immediately. Anything was better than staring at the same 4 walls. The palace was enormous. Corridors branched in every direction. Some rooms were full of growing things, gardens under crystal domes. Other rooms held what looked like art, though Minho could not always tell what he was looking at. Some pieces seemed to exist in more dimensions than his eyes could properly see. Velkara moved through the palace with their graceful walk. They glanced at him with curiosity but never spoke. Minho got the feeling that they knew exactly who he was and why he was being kept here, but he remained completely in the dark. On his 3rd walk through the palace, Minho found a library. The room was circular and tall, with levels upon levels of shelves rising toward a distant ceiling. Books and data crystals filled every shelf. Soft light came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Minho walked between the shelves, looking at spines written in languages he could not read. He felt a sharp pain of homesickness. He would have given anything for a simple book in Korean or even English. The poetry section is quite good if you can find something translated. Minho spun around. A woman stood near one of the reading tables. A human woman. She was maybe 40 years old with short black hair and tired eyes. She wore simple clothes that looked human-made, not the flowing garments the Velkara preferred. You are human, Minho said stupidly. Very observant. The woman replied with a small smile. I am Dabin, Kang Dabin. I am a xenoanthropologist. I study Velkaran culture. Minho crossed the distance between them quickly. How long have you been here? Do you know what is going on? Why am I being kept here? Dabin held up a hand to slow him down. Sit, I will explain what I can. They sat at the reading table. Dabin had several books open in front of her, all filled with Velkaran text. I have been on Velkara Prime for 3 years, Dabin said. I came here with permission from both the Terran government and the Velkaran court. They allow me to study their culture, their history, their customs. In return, I help them understand human behavior when they need it. Then help me understand, Minho said. Why am I here? I just delivered a message. That is all I did. Dabin studied him for a long moment. I have been here for 3 years and I have never seen Queen Isavera take personal interest in anyone, human or Velkara. The fact that she ordered you kept here, that she called you her honored guest, that is unprecedented. But why? Minho felt frustration building in his chest. I am nobody, just a messenger. The Velkara do nothing without deep reasons, Dabin said carefully. Every decision, every action, it all has meaning. They communicate through symbols and gestures that can take years to fully understand. Whatever the Queen saw in you, it was significant enough to break decades of protocol. What did she see? Minho asked. I do not know, Dabin admitted, but I can tell you that you should pay attention to everything. Every conversation, every interaction. The Velkara rarely explain themselves directly. They expect you to understand through observation. Minho put his head in his hands. This is insane. I should be making deliveries right now. My supervisor probably thinks I am dead. My mother must be worried sick. Your supervisor knows you are alive, Dabin said gently. The Velkara informed the Terran government that you are here as a guest. They have allowed no further communication, but at least people know you are safe. Safe, Minho repeated bitterly. Safe in a prison. A luxurious prison, Dabin pointed out. That means something. If they wanted to harm you or interrogate you, you would be in very different rooms. The fact that they are treating you with such respect suggests they want something from you, but not through force. Over the following days, Minho spent time with Dabin whenever he could. She taught him more about Velkaran culture. She explained their complex social hierarchies, their long history, their way of thinking that was so different from human thought patterns. She also warned him. The Queen will summon you eventually. When she does, be honest. The Velkara can detect lies in ways we do not fully understand. Do not try to be impressive. Do not exaggerate. Just be yourself. The summons came on the 23rd day of his captivity. Guards arrived at his room early in the morning and told him the Queen requested his presence for a private audience. They led him through the palace to a different room, much smaller than the throne room. This room had comfortable seating and windows that looked out over the floating gardens. Queen Isavera was already there, standing by the window. She turned as he entered. Minho, she said, please sit. He sat on what looked like a chair but adjusted itself to his body in strange ways. The Queen sat across from him. This close, her presence was overwhelming. The light from her skin was brighter, and he could see patterns moving beneath the surface like slow currents in deep water. You have been treated well? The Queen asked. Yes, Your Majesty, Minho said carefully. Everyone has been very kind. But you are unhappy. There was no point in lying. I do not understand why I am here, Your Majesty. I do not understand what you want from me. The Queen tilted her head in that gesture he was beginning to recognize as curiosity. Tell me about your childhood. Minho blinked at the sudden change of subject. My childhood? Yes, where did you grow up? What was your life like? This was not what Minho expected, but Dabin had told him to be honest, so he answered. I grew up in Seoul, on Earth. My father died when I was young, so it was just my mother and me. We did not have much money. She worked very hard. I studied hard and got a job as a messenger so I could help support her. And you are content with this life? The Queen asked. Delivering messages? Never staying in one place? Minho thought about it. It is simple, safe, I am good at it. I suppose I never wanted anything more complicated. Interesting, the Queen said. That word again, the same word she had used when she first saw him. They talked for over an hour. The Queen asked him questions that seemed random. What did Earth forests look like? Did he believe in fate or choice? What did he think about duty versus personal happiness? Minho answered as best he could. He noticed something strange as they talked. The Queen's skin, which had been shifting through cool colors like silver and blue, gradually warmed. Gold tones appeared, soft pinks, colors that reminded him of sunrise. When the audience ended, Minho felt more confused than ever. The Queen had learned a lot about him, but he had learned nothing about why he was here. More audiences followed. Every few days the Queen would summon him. They would talk about philosophy, about culture, about mundane things like favorite foods and childhood memories. The Queen never explained her purpose. She just listened, asked questions, and watched him with those deep alien eyes. Minho began to notice things in the palace. Velkaran nobles would watch him pass with expressions he could not read. He caught fragments of whispered conversations in the Velkaran language, words he did not understand but which seemed urgent. One word kept appearing. He heard it over and over in the whispers. It sounded like Veskara in their musical tongue. He asked Dabin about it one day in the library. Her face went pale. "Where did you hear that word?" "Everywhere. The nobles keep saying it when they see me. What does it mean?" Dabin looked around to make sure no one was listening. "It means prophecy or fate, sometimes both depending on context." "Prophecy?" Minho felt cold. "What prophecy?" "I do not know," Dabin said. "The Velkara do not share their deepest beliefs with outsiders easily. But if they are calling you that, then you are connected to something important in their culture, something they have been waiting for." That night Minho could not sleep. He stood at his window and looked out at the glowing city. Somewhere out there, his ship sat on a landing platform waiting for a pilot who might never return. He was a simple messenger. He had always been a simple messenger. Whatever the Velkara thought he was, whatever prophecy they believed he fulfilled, they were wrong. He was just Minho, just a man who delivered packages and sent money to his mother. But as he watched the alien city glow in the darkness, he could not shake the feeling that his simple life was over. Whatever came next would change everything. He just wished someone would tell him what it was. 2 months had passed. 2 months of comfortable captivity, of strange conversations with the queen, of wandering the palace gardens and feeling like a specimen in a beautiful zoo. Minho had reached his limit. He requested an audience with Queen Isavera. The guards looked surprised at his boldness, but they carried the message. To his greater surprise, the queen agreed to see him immediately. She received him in the same private room where they had talked so many times before. But this time Minho did not sit. He stood, and he did not bow his head as deeply as protocol demanded. "Your Majesty," he said, and his voice was not as respectful as it should have been. "I cannot do this anymore. I need to know why I am here. I need to know what you want from me, and if you will not tell me, then I need to leave." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then to his shock, she smiled. It was the first time he had seen any Velkara smile. Her face transformed, becoming something that was almost familiar despite its alienness. "Finally," she said, "I wondered how long before you would demand answers instead of accepting silence." "You wanted me to get angry?" Minho asked, confused. "I wanted to see who you truly are," the queen replied. "When comfortable, you are polite and careful. When frustrated, you become direct and honest. Both aspects are valuable. Both are necessary for what must come next." She gestured to a chair. This time her gesture felt like a request rather than a command. Minho sat slowly. "I will tell you the truth now," Queen Isavera said. "But you must understand that what I reveal may frighten you. It may even anger you further." "I am already frightened and angry," Minho said. "Tell me." The queen called out something in her own language. A moment later, another Velkara entered. This one was smaller, dressed in robes that seemed to be made of light itself. The queen introduced her. "This is Velsara, my chief advisor and the keeper of our most important knowledge. She will help me explain." Velsara bowed to Minho, which was strange. No Velkara had ever bowed to him before. "Human Minho," Velsara said through the translator. "What I'm about to tell you is known to very few outside our species. We ask that you keep this knowledge sacred." "I will try," Minho said. "If you finally tell me what is going on." Velsara nodded. "My people possess an ability that yours do not. We can perceive what we call resonance patterns in all living beings. These patterns are like signatures written in the very structure of life itself. They tell us about genetic compatibility, about potential, about the fundamental nature of a being." Minho frowned. "I do not understand." "Every living thing vibrates at certain frequencies," the queen said, taking over the explanation. "Most beings vibrate in patterns that are similar to their own species. Sometimes, rarely, we find patterns that resonate across species. This suggests deep compatibility at the most fundamental level of biology." "Okay," Minho said slowly. "What does this have to do with me?" The queen leaned forward. Her eyes seemed to glow brighter. "When you walked into my throne room 2 months ago, I perceived your resonance pattern, and I discovered something that should be impossible." She paused, as if gathering courage to continue. Your genetic pattern contains a resonance that matches my royal bloodline. Not similar. Not close. Matching. As if you were born of Velkara royalty yourself, even though you are completely human. Minho stared at her. That makes no sense. How can a human match an alien genetic pattern? We do not fully understand it either, Velsera admitted. We have been studying the question since you arrived. The only explanation we have found is that somewhere in your ancestry, there is a genetic mutation that produces the same resonance we carry in our royal line. What does this resonance do? Minho asked. Why does it matter? The queen stood and walked to the window. Her shoulders were tense, and for the first time Minho saw her as not just powerful but burdened. Velkaran royal succession is not simple, she said quietly. Our heirs must carry specific genetic markers. Without these markers, they cannot rule. They cannot access the ancient technologies that only respond to royal blood. They cannot maintain the stability that holds our empire together. She turned back to face him. I have ruled for 200 years. In all that time, I have tried to produce an heir. I have taken consorts from the most compatible Velkara bloodlines. I have used every medical technology we possess. Every attempt has failed. The weight in her voice was crushing. Minho began to understand where this was going, and ice formed in his stomach. Without an heir, the queen continued, my empire will fall into civil war when I die. The noble houses will fight for control. Millions will die. Perhaps billions. The stability that has lasted for thousands of years will shatter. I am sorry for your people, Minho said carefully, but I still do not understand why I am here. Velsera spoke up. The resonance we detected in you suggests genetic compatibility with the queen. Not just compatibility, but perfect matching. Our scientists believe that you could father a viable heir, a hybrid child, human and Velkara combined, who would carry the royal markers necessary for succession. Minho stopped breathing. The room spun around him. You want me to... He could not even finish the sentence. I want you to help me save my people, Queen Isavera said. Her voice was steady, but Minho could hear the desperation underneath.
I want you to father my heir.
In return, I can offer you wealth beyond measure, status in my court, the gratitude of an entire empire, and the knowledge that you prevented a war that would consume whole star systems. Minho stood up so fast the chair fell over behind him. This is insane. You have kept me prisoner for 2 months to ask me to what? Become some kind of breeding stock for your royal line? I kept you here to determine if you were worthy, the queen said. Royal heirs are not just biology. They must have the right character, the right qualities of mind and spirit. I needed to know who you are before I could even ask this of you. I am a messenger, Minho shouted. All his frustration, all his fear poured out in those words. I am nobody special. I deliver packages. That is all I do. I am not some prophesied savior. I am not royal. I am not even particularly brave or smart or anything that would make me worthy of this. You are adaptable, the queen said calmly. You survived 2 months of captivity without breaking. You remained kind to my servants even when angry. You learned about my culture rather than rejecting it. You demanded answers when you needed them. These are the qualities that matter. Minho felt like he might vomit. No, the answer is no. Send me home. Let me go back to my ship and my simple life. Find someone else. Find another human with this resonance thing. I cannot do this. There may not be time to find another, Velsera said. Our projections suggest the queen has perhaps 20 more years before her biological systems begin to fail. If we do not produce an heir before then, there will be no preventing the civil war. That is not my problem, Minho said harshly. That is not my responsibility. I did not ask for any of this. Queen Isavera nodded slowly. You are right. You did not ask for this. You simply walked into a throne room to deliver a message, and fate placed an impossible burden on your shoulders. She was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I will not force you, Minho. I could. I have the power to compel your cooperation. But an heir born from force would be tainted by that act. My people would sense it, and the child would never be fully accepted. She walked closer to him. I am asking you to choose. I am giving you information you did not want and a choice you should never have to make. Think about what I have told you. Consider what is at stake. And when you have an answer, tell me. My answer is no, Minho said immediately. Then perhaps it will remain no, the queen said. But I ask that you take time to truly consider. Not just hours, days, weeks if you need them. This decision will affect not just you and me, but billions of lives across my empire. Why should I care about your empire? Minho asked, though his voice had lost some of its heat. Because that is who you are, Queen Isavera said simply. In our conversations you have told me again and again about your sense of duty, about how you chose a simple life because it allowed you to help your mother, about how you take pride in doing your job well because people depend on messengers to be reliable. You care about responsibility even when it is inconvenient. She was right, and Minho hated that she was right. I need to think, he said finally. Alone. Of course, the Queen said. Belsara will make sure you have access to any information you need. Medical data, political projections, anything that might help you understand the full situation. Minho walked to the door. The guards opened it for him. As he stepped through, the Queen called out one more time. Minho, whatever you decide, thank you for listening. I know this is unfair, he did not respond. He walked back to his rooms in a daze, his mind spinning with impossible thoughts. That night he lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. A messenger from Earth, asked to father the heir of an alien empire, asked to become part of royal succession, asked to carry the fate of billions on his shoulders. It was the most absurd thing he had ever heard. And yet, despite everything, and the next morning, Minho found Dabin in the library. She took one look at his face and immediately led him to a private corner where they could talk without being overheard. She told you, Dabin said. It was not a question. You knew. Minho felt a flash of anger. You knew what they wanted from me and you said nothing. I suspected, Dabin corrected. I have been studying Velkaran culture for 3 years. When a queen personally detains a human messenger, when she speaks of prophecy and resonance, when she takes such unusual interest, the possibilities become limited. But I did not know for certain until now. Minho slumped in his chair. What do I do? That depends, Dabin said carefully. What do you want to do? I want to go home, Minho said immediately. I want to forget this ever happened. I want my simple life back, but she said millions might die if there is no heir. Billions, maybe. How can I just walk away from that? Dabin was quiet for a moment. Let me tell you something about the Velkara that you might not know. They do not lie, but they do shape truth to serve their purposes. Queen Isavera told you there would be civil war. She probably believes that. But civil wars are not certain. They are possible. She seemed very sure, Minho said. Because she has been queen for 200 years, Dabin explained. She knows her people. She knows the political tensions. But the future is never absolutely certain. There might be other solutions, other ways to prevent war. She is asking you to be her solution because she believes you are the best option, not because you are the only option. This made Minho feel slightly better. Slightly. I need to contact Earth, he said. I need to talk to someone from home, someone who can help me think through this. Dabin nodded. I will arrange it. The Velkara owe me some favors. 2 days later, Minho stood in a communication room deep in the palace. A screen flickered to life and Jiwon's face appeared. She looked tired and older than he remembered. Minho, she said, her voice breaking slightly. Are you all right? Have they hurt you? I am fine, Minho said. They have treated me well. But I need your advice. He explained everything. The resonance pattern, the royal succession crisis, the queen's request. As he talked, he watched Jiwon's expression change from relief to shock to something that might have been horror. When he finished, she was silent for a long time. They are asking you to change your entire life, she said finally, to become part of an alien royal family, to father a child that would be half human, half something we barely understand. I know, Minho said. That is why I need to know what Earth thinks. What the government thinks. If I do this, am I helping humanity or betraying it? Jiwon shook her head. The Terran government has no official position. How could they? This situation has never happened before. Legally, you are a free citizen. The choice is yours alone. That does not help me, Minho said, frustration leaking into his voice. I know, Jiwon said softly. But it is the truth. I can tell you what I think if you want. Please. Jiwon looked directly at him through the screen. I think that if you do this, you will never be the same. The simple life you love will be gone forever. You will become someone important, someone watched, someone with responsibilities you never wanted. It will be hard. Possibly the hardest thing anyone has ever been asked to do. She paused. But I also think that you are one of the few people who might actually be capable of it. Not because you are special or chosen, but because you are adaptable, because you care about doing the right thing, because even when you are angry and scared, you still think about others. Minho felt tears forming in his eyes. I just want to come home. I know, Jawan said. And if you say no, if you get on your ship and come home tomorrow, no one would blame you. Not me, not anyone who knows you. This is too much to ask of anyone. They talked for another hour. Jiwon told him about his mother, who was worried but safe. She told him about other messengers covering his routes. She told him about normal life continuing on Earth while he was trapped in an impossible decision on an alien world. When the call ended, Minho felt more alone than ever. He spent the next week researching. Velsara had promised him access to information, and she kept that promise. He learned about Velkaran genetics, about the science of hybridization, about the history of their royal succession. The more he learned, the more complicated everything became. The procedure itself would be dangerous. Cross-species reproduction had never been successfully attempted with the Velkara. Their scientists believed it was possible with him because of the resonance match, but possible was not certain. There were risks to the Queen, risks to any potential child, and risks to him. Previous attempts by the Queen to produce an heir, even with compatible Velkara partners, had all failed. Multiple times she had gone through the biological processes required, and multiple times the developing heir had not survived. The failures had taken a toll on her, physically and emotionally. If Minho agreed and it failed again, he would have given up his life for nothing. But if he agreed and it succeeded, he would be bound to the Velkaran Empire forever. The child would be royal, would need both parents present and involved. He could never simply leave and return to being a messenger. He continued his conversations with Queen Isavera. Now that the truth was revealed, their discussions became more honest. She told him about the loneliness of her long life, about watching everyone she cared about age and die while she continued, about the burden of knowing that her failure to produce an heir might doom her entire civilization. Minho told her about his fears, about feeling inadequate for such an enormous responsibility, about missing the simplicity of his old life, about doubting whether he had any right to become part of something so far beyond his understanding. You keep saying you are nobody special, the Queen said during one of these conversations, but that is precisely why you might succeed where others have failed. I do not understand, Minho said. The noble Velkara I have attempted to bond with, they were raised for royalty. Trained in politics and power, they approached the process with ambition and expectation. They wanted to be the parent of an heir for their own status. The Queen's skin shifted to darker colors, showing what Minho had learned to recognize as sadness. That energy, that ambition, it created resonance dissonance. The developing heirs sensed it and could not stabilize. She looked at him. You do not want power. You do not want status. You want to help because you feel it is right, not because it benefits you. That simplicity, that honest intention, that might be what allows the resonance to stabilize. Or I might be completely wrong, she added quietly, and we might fail, and you will have sacrificed everything for nothing. Minho appreciated her honesty, even as it made his decision harder. One evening, as he walked through the palace gardens, he encountered a group of Velkaran nobles. They stopped their conversation when they saw him. One of them, a tall male with deep purple skin, stepped forward. Human, the noble said, his tone cold even through the translator. You should leave our world. The Queen's plan is desperate and foolish. Hybrid abominations will not save our empire. The other nobles nodded in agreement. They walked away, leaving Minho standing alone among the alien flowers. That night, he talked with Dabin again. There are Velkara who do not want this to happen, he said. What if I agree and their child is born, but the people reject it because it is part human? That is a real risk, Dabin admitted. Velkaran culture is ancient and traditional. Many of them might see a hybrid heir as wrong. The child would face prejudice, possibly hatred. Then what is the point? Minho asked. If the child is rejected, there is still no heir. Still war. Maybe, Dabin said. Or maybe the child succeeds. Maybe it shows both species that we are not as different as we think. Maybe it becomes a bridge instead of a barrier. She looked at him seriously. You cannot predict every outcome, Minho. You can only decide what you believe is right and accept the consequences. Minho walked back to his rooms. He stood at his window and looked out at the glowing city. at the 3 moons hanging in the alien sky, at the beauty of a world that was not his own. He thought about his mother on Earth, about the simple apartment where he grew up, about delivering packages and never worrying about anything more complicated than jump gate schedules. He thought about Queen Isavera, who had lived for 2 centuries and faced the possibility of being her empire's last ruler. He thought about billions of Velkara who knew nothing about him but whose futures might depend on his choice. He thought about the child that might exist if he said yes, half human, half alien, belonging fully to neither world, carrying an impossible burden from birth, and he thought about himself. About who he was and who he might become, the simple messenger, the man who just wanted to do his job and go home. Could that man really father the heir to an alien empire? Should he? Minho stood at that window until the alien sun rose, painting the sky in colors Earth had never seen. When morning came, he still did not have an answer, but he knew he had to decide soon. The Queen had given him time, but time was running out. For her people, and for him, whatever he chose would change everything. There was no safe option, no simple option. There was only the weight of an impossible choice and the knowledge that millions of lives might hang in the... 3 weeks had passed since the revelation. 3 weeks of research, of conversations, of sleepless nights. Minho felt like he was being torn apart by the decision before him. Then something happened that changed everything. He was walking through the palace when he heard raised voices. Velkara rarely shouted, so the sound was shocking. He followed the noise to a large meeting chamber. The doors were partly open. Inside he saw Queen Isavera surrounded by a group of nobles. Their skin colors were flashing dark reds and purples, colors he had learned indicated anger and aggression. The noble with deep purple skin, the one who had confronted Minho in the gardens, was speaking loudly. "Your Majesty, this plan to involve the human is beneath the dignity of the throne. Release him and pursue traditional solutions." "I have pursued traditional solutions for 200 years, the Queen replied, her voice strained. "None have succeeded." "Then perhaps the Empire must accept that your line ends with you," another noble said. "The great houses will negotiate succession. War is not inevitable." "You are naive, Kezvan," the Queen said to the purple-skinned noble. "The moment I die without an heir, your house and 3 others will claim the right to rule. Within months, we will be at war. Within years, millions will be dead. Better that than contaminating the royal line with alien blood," Kezvan replied coldly. The Queen's skin flashed with colors Minho had never seen before, bright white streaked with black. "Pure fury. You dare," she began. "I dare because I must," Kezvan interrupted. "Other nobles feel as I do. We will not accept a hybrid heir. If you proceed with this plan, you will create the very civil war you seek to prevent." Minho stepped back from the door, his heart pounding. He had known some Velkara opposed the Queen's plan, but hearing the raw hostility in Kezvan's voice made it real. If Minho agreed to help the Queen, he would be creating enemies. Powerful enemies who might harm not just him, but any child that resulted. He walked quickly back to his rooms. Once there, he requested to speak with Dabin immediately. She arrived within an hour, her face worried. "What happened?" Minho told her about the confrontation he had witnessed. "I cannot do this," he said. "Even if I agree, even if we succeed, the child will be hated by half the Empire. I would be setting up an innocent child to fail." Dabin sat down heavily. "The situation is worse than I thought. Lord Kezvan is powerful. If he truly opposes this, he could cause significant problems. So I should refuse," Minho said. "Right? That is the only logical choice." "Maybe," Dabin said. She looked at him thoughtfully. "Or maybe you need to understand something about humanity that the Velkara do not." "What do you mean?" "The Velkara see you as genetically compatible but socially weak," Dabin explained. "They think you are just a messenger, just someone ordinary. They do not understand what that ordinariness represents." She leaned forward. "Humans are survivors, Minho. We came from a world that tried to kill us constantly. We adapted. We overcame. We thrived in environments that should have destroyed us. That is what humanity means. Not physical strength, not ancient wisdom, but the ability to adapt to impossible situations and somehow make them work. I am just one person," Minho said. "I cannot change an empire's opinion." "Your grandmother could," Dabin said quietly. Minho stared at her. What? I did some research into your family history after you told me about your background, Dabin said. Your grandmother was Sora, Lee Sora. Does that name mean anything to you? She died when I was young, Minho said. My mother told me she was a doctor. That is all I know. Dabin pulled out a datapad. She was more than a doctor. During Earth's genetic plague wars, she was one of the lead researchers who developed the cure. She exposed herself to the plague deliberately, used her own body as a laboratory, and emerged with genetic mutations that made her immune. Those mutations saved billions of human lives. Minho's breath caught. I never knew. The mutations were passed down through her children. Your mother carries them. You carry them. That is probably why you have the resonance match with the Queen. Your grandmother's adaptability, her willingness to sacrifice herself for others. It literally changed your genetics. Dabin looked at him seriously. You keep saying you are ordinary, but you carry the legacy of someone who did the extraordinary, someone who faced an impossible situation and found a solution through sheer human stubbornness. Minho sat in silence, processing this information. His grandmother, a woman he barely remembered, had changed human history, and he carried that legacy in his very cells. What are you saying? He asked. That I should agree because my grandmother would have? I am saying that maybe this is not as impossible as you think, Dabin replied. Maybe you have more strength than you realize. That night, Minho requested an audience with Queen Isavera. She received him immediately, looking tired and sad. I heard the confrontation with Lord Kesvan, Minho said without preamble. I know that even if I agree, many of your people will oppose the child. Yes, the Queen admitted. I will not lie to you about that. The opposition is significant. Then I have a proposition, Minho said. Not an answer yet, but something I need to understand before I can decide. Speak, the Queen said. If I agree to this, I will not be just a donor. I will not be just a means to an end. If we are to create a child together, I need to be a true partner in its raising. I need to have a voice in decisions. I need to be respected, not just tolerated. The Queen studied him. You are asking for equal status with me. That is unprecedented. I know, Minho said. But if this child is to have any chance of being accepted, it needs to embody both of our peoples. That requires both parents to be truly invested. If the Velkara see me as lesser, they will see the child as lesser. If they see me as a partner, as someone you chose to stand beside, then maybe they will accept what we create. The Queen was silent for a long time. Her skin shifted through dozens of colors as she thought. What you ask is radical, she said finally. It would change the structure of the royal court. It would give a human unprecedented power in Velkaran society. Yes, Minho said simply. Many nobles would be furious. They are already furious. The Queen laughed, a sound like chimes in wind. You are correct. What is one more radical change when we are already breaking tradition? She stood and walked close to him. If you agree to help me, I will make you royal consort. You will have voice in court decisions. You will help raise and guide the heir. You will be my partner truly and completely, not just in biology but in rule. And if the nobles oppose this, Minho asked, then they will learn that their queen is willing to fight for the future of the empire, even if it means fighting her own people, Isavera said firmly. Minho looked at this alien queen who had trapped him, studied him, and now offered him power he never wanted. He saw the desperation in her eyes, yes, but also genuine respect. She was willing to treat him as an equal, to risk everything on the chance that they could create something new together. I need one more thing, Minho said. Name it. I need to know the risks, the real risks, not political ones, medical ones. What could happen to you, to me, to any child if we attempt this? The Queen called for Velsara. The advisor arrived quickly, bringing medical data that painted a sobering picture. The hybridization process would require both Minho and the Queen to undergo genetic modification. Their cells would need to be adjusted to become compatible at the deepest level. The process was painful and carried a small risk of death for both of them. Even if they survived the preparation, the actual creation of an heir involved Velkaran biological processes that humans were not designed for. Minho would need to undergo neural linking with the Queen, sharing consciousness during the months of gestation. The mental and emotional toll could be severe, and all of this assumed success. The chance that an heir would actually develop successfully, was estimated at only 40%. More likely than previous attempts, but still less than half. If we fail, Velsera said quietly, the Queen will not be able to make another attempt. Her biological systems would be too damaged. This is truly the final chance. Minho absorbed all of this. One chance, 40% success rate, risk of death. Guaranteed life change even if they survived. He thought about his mother on Earth who would lose her son either way. Either he would die in this attempt or he would become someone too changed to ever truly come home. He thought about his simple life as a messenger, already lost forever regardless of his choice. He thought about Lord Kesvan and the nobles who would hate the child, about the prejudice and difficulty any hybrid heir would face. But he also thought about his grandmother Sora, who faced a plague with her own body as the battleground. He thought about billions of Velkara who had no say in their fate. He thought about Queen Isavera, alone for 2 centuries trying desperately to save her people. And he thought about himself, about who he had always been and who he might become. I need to walk, he said, to think. Can I go to the gardens? Of course, the Queen said. Minho walked through the floating gardens under the 3 moons. The alien flowers glowed softly in the darkness. In the distance, he could see the lights of the Velkaran city, millions of lives going about their business, unaware that a human messenger was deciding their future. He found a bench near a waterfall that flowed upward and sat down. He closed his eyes and tried to find clarity in the chaos of his. The preparations took 3 months. 3 months of medical procedures that pushed both Minho and Queen Isavera to their limits. The genetic modifications were the worst part. Minho's cells had to be altered at the most fundamental level to achieve compatibility with Velkaran biology. The process felt like fire running through his veins. There were days when he could not leave his bed, when even breathing hurt. The Queen underwent her own modifications. Minho saw her rarely during this time, but when he did, she looked diminished. Her glow was dimmer, her movements slower. The process was taking a toll on both of them. Velsera oversaw everything with meticulous care. Teams of both Velkaran and human doctors brought specially from Earth worked together to ensure the highest chance of success. It was the first true collaboration between the 2 species' medical sciences. Dabin visited Minho often during the painful weeks. She brought news from Earth, messages from his mother, anything to distract him from the discomfort. Your mother wants you to know she understands, Dabin said one day. She said your grandmother would be proud. Minho managed a weak smile. Did you tell her I might die? I told her you were doing something brave, Dabin replied. Something that matters. She said that was enough. When the genetic modifications were finally complete, Minho and the Queen met in a medical chamber, deep in the palace. They were both exhausted, both changed at the cellular level, but alive. Are you ready? The Queen asked. No, Minho said honestly. But I will do it anyway. The actual creation of the heir required a process that was both biological and technological. The Velkara had developed methods over thousands of years to create royal offspring. These methods involved neural linking, shared consciousness, and a biochamber where the heir would develop over the course of months. The neural linking was the most difficult part for Minho to understand. He would need to connect his mind with the Queen's, sharing thoughts and emotions completely. There would be no privacy, no barriers between them. For months, they would essentially be 2 beings sharing one consciousness while maintaining separate bodies. It will be strange, Velsera warned. Humans have never done this before. The sensation may be overwhelming. She was right. The first time Minho and the Queen established the neural link, Minho felt like he was falling into an ocean. Suddenly, he was aware of 200 years of memories that were not his own. He felt the weight of ruling an empire, the loneliness of watching everyone age and die, the desperate fear of failing her people. And the Queen felt his memories too. His simple childhood and soul, his mother's love, his 8 years of quiet deliveries across the stars, his fear of being inadequate for the task before him. For a terrifying moment, Minho did not know where he ended and the Queen began. Then, slowly, they learned to separate themselves while still maintaining connection. It was like learning to walk all over again, but with someone else's legs in addition to your own. This is the most intimate bond that exists in Velkaran culture. The Queen's thoughts came to him, not through words, but through pure meaning. We are truly partners now. Nothing will ever be hidden between us. That is terrifying, Minho thought back. Yes, the Queen agreed, but also beautiful. The days that followed were strange beyond description. Minho would be eating breakfast and suddenly taste food from the Queen's childhood, from species that had gone extinct 1,000 years ago. The Queen would be in a council meeting and suddenly feel Minho's memory of delivering a package to a remote mining colony, the simple satisfaction of a job well done. They learned each other completely. Every strength, every weakness, every secret shame and quiet pride. And through it all, in the biochamber between them, something began to grow. The heir was not developing in a womb the way human children did. Instead, the biochamber served as an artificial environment that responded to both parents' biological and neural inputs. Minho and the Queen had to visit the chamber together every day, maintaining the link, providing the energy and consciousness that the developing heir needed. Minho could feel the tiny spark of life growing. It was neither human nor Velkara yet, but something entirely new. Each day it became stronger, more defined, more real. The Velkaran court watched all of this with mixed emotions. Some, like Velsara, supported the attempt with quiet hope. Others, like Lord Kesvan, made their opposition known at every opportunity. One day, Kesvan confronted Minho directly in the palace corridors. "You should not be here, human. You are contaminating something sacred." Through the neural link, Minho felt the Queen's anger at Kesvan's words. But Minho remained calm. "I am here because your Queen asked me to help save your empire," Minho said quietly. "If you have a better solution, I am happy to hear it." Kesvan had no response. He walked away, his skin flashing dark colors. I wanted to strike him. The Queen's thoughts came through the link. How dare he speak to you that way? Violence will not help, Minho thought back. We need to show them that this can work, that our child can bridge the gap between our peoples. When did you become so wise? The Queen thought, and he could feel her amusement mixed with respect. I am not wise, Minho replied. I am just too tired to be angry anymore. As the months passed, the heir continued to develop. Medical scans showed something unprecedented. The child carried genetic markers from both species, perfectly balanced. It had the resonance patterns necessary for Velkaran royal succession, but also carried human adaptability in its cellular structure. It is working, Velsara reported to the court. Against all probability, it is actually working. But success was not guaranteed. The Queen's previous attempts had failed during the final stages of development, when the heir's consciousness began to truly form. This was the most critical period. Minho and the Queen spent every moment they could at the biochamber. Through the neural link, they began to sense the child's developing awareness. It was primitive still, not really thoughts, but something like feelings. Curiosity, warmth, the beginning of consciousness. She is aware of us, the Queen thought to Minho one day. She knows we are here. She? Minho asked. I can feel it, the Queen replied. She will be female, strong, stubborn, like her father. Minho felt a rush of emotion so strong it took his breath away. The child was real, not just a possibility anymore, but a person beginning to exist. His daughter. Their daughter. Then came the crisis. On the 7th month, alarms screamed through the medical wing. Minho was in his quarters when he felt it through the neural link. Sudden pain. Fear. Something was wrong. He ran to the medical chamber. The Queen was already there, her skin flashing white with panic. The biochamber's readings were unstable. The heir's life signs were weakening. What is happening? Minho demanded. Resonance collapse, Velsara said, her voice tight. The same thing that happened with previous attempts. The heir's consciousness is rejecting the combined genetic patterns. If we cannot stabilize it within hours, we will lose her. Minho felt like the floor had dropped away beneath him. After everything, after all the pain and sacrifice, they were going to fail. No, the queen said aloud. Through the link, Minho felt her determination like steel. We will not lose her. We will not. Your Majesty, we have tried everything we know, Velsara said helplessly. Then we will try something new, the queen said. She looked at Minho. Full connection. Complete neural integration. We give her everything we are. That is dangerous, Velsara protested. If you merge your consciousness that deeply, you may not be able to separate again. You could lose yourselves. Then we lose ourselves, Minho said. He understood what the queen was proposing. They would dissolve the barriers between their minds completely, become one consciousness and channel that unified presence to their daughter. It might stabilize her, or it might destroy them all. Do it, Minho said. The queen took his hand. Even though they had been linked for months, this was the first time they had physically touched since the process began. Her hand was warm, her grip strong. They closed their eyes and opened their minds completely. Minho fell into infinity. He was the queen and the queen was him. He remembered ruling for 200 years. She remembered growing up in Seoul with barely enough food. He felt the burden of billions of lives depending on his decisions. She felt the simple joy of a delivery completed successfully. They were neither human nor Velkara. They were something new, something unified. And together, as one being with two hearts, they reached for their daughter. She was there in the biochamber, tiny and fragile and fighting to exist. They could feel her confusion, her fear. She did not understand why she was both things, why she belonged to two worlds that seemed opposed to each other. You belong to both because both are beautiful, they told her with unified voice. You are not broken, you are whole. You are the bridge we needed. You are the future. They poured everything into her. All their love, all their hope, all their determination. They showed her the best of both worlds. Earth's forests and Velkara's crystal spires. Human laughter and Velkaran song. Simple kindness and ancient wisdom. They showed her that being different was not weakness. It was strength. Slowly, gradually, the air's readings began to stabilize.